In the heart of the forest, the sound of crunching leaves filled the air. A shadow moved swiftly between the trees, its presence almost unnoticed. The cabin's lantern flickered, casting strange shapes on the walls. Alex froze, his wooden horse clutched tightly in his hands. "Mom, I think someone's outside," he whispered. Hannah's eyes widened as she reached for the door, but the creaking hinge gave away their silence. Outside, the shadow stopped. It knew it had been heard. Was it friend or foe? Let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. One day, Robert came home angry. "You both are nothing but trouble," he shouted at Hannah and Alex. "I don't need you in my house anymore. Get out!" Hannah tried to reason with Robert, but he wouldn't listen. He kicked them out, slamming the door behind him. Hannah and Alex stood outside the mansion, carrying only a small bag of clothes. Tears rolled down Alex's cheeks as he held his mother's hand. They were scared and didn't know where to go. After walking for hours, they reached the edge of the forest. It was getting dark, and the tall trees looked spooky. But then, something caught Alex's eye. Hidden behind the bushes was a small wooden cabin. It looked old and forgotten, but it was better than sleeping outside in the cold. Hannah pushed the creaky door open, and they stepped inside. The cabin was dusty and had spider webs in the corners, but it felt warm and safe. There was an old bed, a small table, and a fireplace. Alex found a rusty lantern on the floor. "Look, Mom, we can light this," he said, smiling for the first time that day. Over the next few days, they cleaned the cabin and made it their home. Hannah used her cooking skills to prepare meals with wild berries and mushrooms she found in the forest. Alex discovered he could carve wooden toys with a knife he had in his bag. Life was simple but peaceful. One morning, while exploring the forest, Alex stumbled upon a sparkling stream. He noticed something shiny under the water, a golden coin. He and his mom followed the stream and found a hidden chest filled with gold coins and jewels. "It's amazing," Alex exclaimed, his eyes wide. But Hannah reminded him, "This treasure could bring us more trouble than happiness. Let's think about how we can use it wisely." Hannah and Alex sat by the fireplace, staring at the chest of gold coins and jewels. It sparkled so brightly that the entire cabin seemed to glow. Alex couldn't stop smiling. "Mom, this can change everything. We don't have to worry anymore." Hannah nodded but looked thoughtful. "You're right, Alex. This treasure could help us, but we must be careful. We don't want anyone to know about it just yet. If the wrong people find out, they might take it from us." Alex understood. They decided to keep the treasure hidden in a safe spot under the cabin's floor. Hannah found an old wooden box and carefully transferred the coins and jewels into it. Alex helped cover the hiding spot with loose floorboards and a rug. The next day, Alex and Hannah started using the gold coins to make their life better. Hannah sewed a small pouch to carry some coins, and they walked to a nearby town. It was the first time they had left the forest since they found the cabin. The town was busy, with markets full of colorful fruits, warm bread, and cheerful people. Alex's eyes lit up when he saw a little toy shop. "Can we look inside, Mom?" he asked eagerly. Hannah smiled. "Of course, Alex. Let's take a quick look." Inside the shop, Alex spotted a small wooden airplane. "It's just like the one I carved, but better," he said, picking it up. Hannah bought it for him with one gold coin, and the shopkeeper gave them a curious look. "Haven't seen one of these coins before," he muttered. Hannah quickly made up a story. "It's from an old family collection," she said with a polite smile. They bought some food and warm blankets too, and hurried back to the cabin. That evening, as Alex played with his new airplane and Hannah cooked stew over the fire, they felt hopeful. But Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that they needed to be cautious. She began making plans to use the treasure wisely so they could rebuild their lives without attracting attention. Meanwhile, back in his golden mansion, Robert started noticing something strange. Without Hannah to keep things organized, his life was falling apart. His expensive clothes were scattered everywhere. His meals were tasteless, and the mansion felt empty and cold. He began to wonder if he had made a mistake. But Robert was a proud man, and he hated admitting he was wrong. Instead, he tried to convince himself that he didn't need anyone. Little did he know that Hannah and Alex were discovering what it meant to live with love, hope, and courage, even in a tiny cabin in the woods. Hannah woke up early the next morning, her mind racing with ideas on how to use the treasure wisely. She decided they needed a way to earn money that wouldn't draw attention to their hidden gold. Alex, she said as he rubbed his sleepy eyes, how would you like to start a little shop in the town? Alex's eyes widened. A shop? What kind of shop, Mom? Hannah smiled. Well, you're so good at carving wooden toys. What if we made more of them to sell? We can use the money to buy what we need, and no one will ever guess about our treasure. Alex jumped out of bed excited. That's a great idea. I'll carve the best toys ever. Over the next few days, Alex worked hard. He carved animals, tiny houses, and even miniature boats. Hannah used some of the gold coins to buy paint and brushes from the town. Together, they painted the toys in bright, cheerful colors. The little cabin was soon filled with the smell of wood shavings and paint. On market day, they set up a small table in the town square. Alex proudly arranged the toys while Hannah greeted the customers. At first, people walked by without much interest, but then a little girl stopped in front of the table. Mom, look, a wooden horse, she exclaimed. Her mother smiled and bought the horse. After that, more and more people came to their table. Children loved the toys and adults admired the craftsmanship. By the end of the day, Hannah and Alex had sold almost everything. As they packed up to leave, the shopkeeper from the toy store approached them. These are some fine toys you've made, he said, stroking his beard. Would you be interested in selling them through my shop? Hannah thought about it and agreed. This way, they wouldn't have to come to the market every week, and they could spend more time making toys. The shopkeeper promised to pay them a fair price. Back at the cabin, Alex couldn't stop talking about their success. Mom, we did it! We're not just surviving, we're really making a life here. Hannah hugged him tightly. I'm proud of you, Alex. This is just the beginning. But while Hannah and Alex were building their new life, something unexpected was happening. Robert, sitting alone in his golden mansion, began hearing rumors about a woman and her son who were selling beautiful wooden toys in town. The story intrigued him, but he brushed it off, thinking it was just small-town gossip. Days passed, and Hannah and Alex's toy business flourished. The shopkeepers sold their creations faster than they could carve and paint new ones. Alex was learning new designs every day, tiny castles, funny animals, and even puzzle toys that amazed everyone. The cabin was filled with laughter and creativity, a sharp contrast to the somber mansion Robert was trapped in. One evening, as Hannah sorted through the day's earnings, Alex looked out the cabin window. He saw a fox darting past the bushes, its fur shining in the moonlight. Mom, Alex said, turning to her, do you think animals understand kindness like people do? Hannah smiled. I believe so, Alex. Kindness can be felt by everyone, no matter how big or small. Their peaceful life in the forest was a lesson for both of them about how little they truly needed to be happy. But fate was stirring trouble in the distance. Robert had finally grown curious about the toy story he'd heard. He wasn't sure why, but something told him he should investigate. One morning, Robert drove his sleek car into the small town. He walked through the market wearing his finest suit. His presence turned heads. He was not a man who fit in the simplicity of the town. The shopkeeper recognized Robert immediately. His golden coins had once bought toys for Alex. "Mr. Cole, what brings you here?" asked the shopkeeper, puzzled but polite. "I've heard about some toys being sold here," Robert said coolly. "Carved by a woman and a boy. I'd like to meet them." The shopkeeper hesitated but pointed toward the cabin's direction. "They live in the forest, near the stream." Robert nodded and left without another word. As his car rumbled toward the forest, he began to feel something unfamiliar. Was it guilt? Regret? He wasn't sure. Back at the cabin, Hannah and Alex were unaware of Robert's arrival. Alex was working on a new wooden horse, adding tiny wings to make it look magical. Hannah was humming as she cooked a pot of soup. They had no idea their peaceful haven was about to be visited by someone they hadn't seen in months. As Robert approached the forest, the towering trees seemed to stretch endlessly above him. The sunlight barely pierced through the thick canopy, and the sound of birds and rustling leaves was all he could hear. He parked his car at the edge of the forest and began walking, following the stream as the shopkeeper had instructed. Meanwhile, inside the cabin, Alex was busy polishing his magical wooden horse. "Mom, do you think one day we could have our own little shop in town?" he asked, his eyes bright with dreams. Hannah chuckled as she ladled soup into bowls. "I think anything is possible if we keep working hard, Alex." Just then, they heard the crunch of footsteps outside the cabin. Hannah froze, her heart skipping a beat. They rarely had visitors, and the sound of someone approaching made her uneasy. Alex peeked out the window and gasped, "Mom, there's a man coming this way." Hannah wiped her hands on her apron and stepped toward the door. As Robert came into view, she felt a jolt of recognition. It had been months since she had seen him, but she could never forget the man who had turned their world upside down. Robert stopped in front of the cabin, hesitating. The cabin was small and humble, a stark contrast to his grand mansion. He noticed the colorful wooden toys scattered outside, unfinished carvings, little boats, and animals lined up neatly. They looked oddly familiar. Hannah opened the door slowly, her expression calm but guarded. "Robert," she said simply, her voice steady. Robert looked at her, then at Alex, who was standing behind her, holding his wooden horse. For the first time in his life, Robert didn't know what to say. His usual confidence was replaced by something he couldn't quite name: shame, regret, perhaps even guilt. I I heard about your toys," Robert finally said, avoiding her gaze. "They're beautiful. I didn't know. You had such talent." Hannah's eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you want, Robert?" Robert shifted uncomfortably. "I wanted to see how you were doing," he said, though even he wasn't sure if that was the truth. Deep down, he felt a pull, a need to understand how they had managed to build something so hopeful after he had left them with nothing. Alex stepped forward, clutching his toy. "Why did you come here?" he asked, his voice small but steady. Robert looked at his son, and for a moment he saw himself reflected in Alex's eyes, not the wealthy man he had become, but the boy he once was, filled with dreams and hopes. He took a deep breath. "Maybe I wanted to see if I could make things right," he said quietly. Hannah studied him, unsure of his intentions. Could Robert really have changed? Or was this just another selfish act? She didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was certain. This reunion would test everything they had built so far. Robert stood awkwardly in front of the cabin, while Hannah and Alex watched him closely, still unsure of his intentions. Hannah finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. If you truly want to make things right, then show us. Actions speak louder than words, Robert. Robert nodded slowly, realizing that this was his chance to do something meaningful. He began visiting the cabin regularly, bringing small gifts and helping Alex carve toys. At first, Hannah was wary of his efforts, but she couldn't deny that Alex seemed happy to have his father around. Together, they worked on a large toy, a magnificent wooden carousel with horses, swans, and tiny lanterns. As the weeks passed, Robert started opening up about his feelings. I've been lonely in that big mansion, he confessed one evening as they sat by the fire. I thought money could make me happy, but I was wrong. Seeing you both build a life here has taught me what truly matters. Hannah listened quietly, but Alex was quick to respond. It's love, Dad, he said confidently. Love is what matters. Robert smiled, a genuine smile that hadn't crossed his face in years. He realized how much he had missed out on, and he promised to change. Hannah still held on to caution, but she allowed herself to hope that Robert might truly have learned a lesson. Eventually, Robert decided to sell his grand mansion and use the money to start a new toy workshop in town. Together, the family crafted toys that brought joy to children far and wide. Their business became so successful that they were able to give back to the community, helping other families who struggled like Hannah and Alex once had. But it wasn't just the success of the toy business that healed their family. It was the simple things, the laughter shared, the stories told by the fire, and the bond that grew stronger each day. Robert had finally learned that wealth was not measured in coins, but in the love and happiness shared with those closest to you. And so, the cabin in the wild became a symbol of transformation, resilience, and the power of love. A place where a shattered family found their way back to each other and built a life richer than Robert ever imagined.